Chancellor Hall, President Gertler, family and friends of the graduates, and most importantly, the class of 2025. I'm honored and humbled to be addressing you, it says here, and I'm more honored and humbled that I've heard things that I never heard before. I promise to not unnecessarily delay the reason you're here, which is to receive and celebrate the degrees you have all so richly earned. My own graduation from law school was a long time ago, and given what you were just told, you can guess how long. Looking back on my then self, there are a few things I suspected about my professional career which I now have a greater sense of, and I thought I might share a few reflections. You're all graduating in times that are much more uncertain and challenging than I did, but I'm hoping that some of them might still be helpful. But I do want to begin by hoping that all of you have the love and support of family and friends to the extent that I have had, a number of them here today, and most particularly the love and support of my husband, Ramsey Derry, and my sons, who are up here on the stage with me, Alex and Duncan. It's unlikely that your career will take you where you might think, or where people would assume your qualifications would lead, whether in law or in the monk school or otherwise. They're likely to lead you in unexpected directions, I think, and it's important to stay open to possibilities. A few examples. In my law school class, a long time ago, there was a long-haired rabble-rouser in the back row of every class, whose pointed interjections took us in unplanned but usually interesting directions. And I don't think any of us thought he was destined for a conventional practice of law, but we kind of hoped he'd get some sort of set of gig jobs over the years and make a living. We were right about one thing. His career did take him in many directions. Bob Ray is currently our ambassador to the United Nations, having served as premier, leader of the official opposition in Ottawa, and of course many other positions. Or another good friend of mine, Nambi Duguid, who's here today, another graduate of the University of Toronto Law School, who had a very successful practice downtown as a labor lawyer. But after several years and reflecting on what she had achieved and obtained from her practice, decided it was time to change directions and become a writer, a food and travel writer, one of the best in the world. Or a younger friend of mine, who's like some of you went through the grueling process of articling interviews only to conclude that they weren't going to lead where he wanted to go. He ended up with the invaluable experience of clerking for some of the most notable judges, constitutional judges in South Africa, simply by seeking a better alternative, taking a risk, and going with the unfamiliar. My own case is rather more conventionally reversed. When I entered law school, probably like some of you, I thought it would be an interesting intellectual challenge, and it might lead somewhere. But it would probably not lead to a long-term career. I have a very short attention span. A career in litigation, or, at the last of all, a position in a Bay Street firm. The story of how that happened is too long, but that I spent more than 40 years as a litigator in the Bay Street firm of Tories is an indication of how far from our original plans our careers may take us. What do I take from these examples? Keep an open mind to the possibilities in front of you and specifically to what you're looking for and what you value as you embark on the exciting next stage of your journeys. There are probably more possibilities than you think. And if after a decent, not prolonged period, what you're doing is not satisfying, look for other possibilities, often in unexpected places. What should you be looking for? A few things. But most of all, I'd think a place where you are valued and mentored. Mentorship doesn't have to be a formal process. In my own case, I learned enormously from the more senior lawyers I worked with and my contemporaries. And after a certain point, it's important to start mentoring those who are younger. But it's wrong to assume that's a one-way street. I've learned at least as much, if not more, from the young people I have worked with. And I wouldn't limit that to the profiting from their very obvious technological superiority. I'd caution you to approach your position with confidence, knowing that what you get from your work is what you make of it. In this respect, I was very lucky. When I started practicing law, there weren't as many women as there are now, and it might have been thought that that would cause me to be somewhat hesitant. It didn't. I had the good fortune to be raised by parents, and particularly by a father, who made it clear that I would be judged by him, and impliedly by others, not by my gender, but by the quality of what I said. I found, and I think you will too, that acting with confidence engenders confidence in others. And amongst other things, that enabled me to shape the practice that I wanted, including challenging cases in the mainstream, civil rights, pro bono, and the remarkable year that's been referred to of working with the Honorable Louise Arbour. Perhaps the main thing that kept me practicing law for so many years was the wonderful experience of being in the thick of civil litigation. You might say that I have spent several decades up close and personal with the rule of law. Civil litigation involves important disputes about the rights and obligations of people and the powers of their governments. Decisions are made by independent judges, appointed overwhelmingly on the basis of merit, who decide cases not on the basis of perceived political or philosophical predisposition, but on evidence, tested fairly in a public adversarial system and according to the law. That doesn't mean that at the end of the case, the losing party is not very disappointed or doesn't think the result is wrong, as I and my clients sometimes were. But if that belief is warranted, there's almost always an appeal available. The rule of law and its necessary judicial independence is a fundamental pillar of our society and system of government, and I didn't think there would be much dispute about that. But now, apparently, there is. Nothing in my entire legal career has alarmed me as much as the recent attack by the Ontario Premier on the independence of the judiciary, and by extension, the rule of law. He decried bleeding heart judges, claimed judges should be appointed on the basis that they reflected his view of the law, and that those who didn't should be removed. Wrongly asserted that they have no power to determine whether the laws passed by the legislature are beyond their jurisdiction, and ended by calling for the election of judges so that they could be selected on the basis of popularity and not legal merit. And in case anyone thought he was just having a bad day, his Attorney General helpfully added that he's been expressing these and more critical opinions in private for many years. One of the important aspects of law is to protect everyone, including individuals and minorities, from breaches of the law by those more popular or powerful, even, and sometimes especially, when those who break the law are elected. The law is not a popularity contest, and if it were, we would all be at the mercy of uncertainty, not legal rules, created by whomever at a particular point in time claimed to embody the perceived opinion. I, for one, am deeply troubled by our Premier's recent attack on that system, not only because it comes from someone with power with influence over that system, but because, as we have seen in many other places, including south of us, that words from people in power such as this quickly begin to influence public opinion. We are blessed to live in a society governed by the rule of law, which depends on an independent judiciary. And my most profound hope for all of you is that it will continue throughout your legal careers. And wherever your hard-earned degrees take you, I hope you will use your intelligence, passion, and education to support it. My warmest congratulations to you all.